"Mommy, please don't come in." 15-year-old Olivia's desperate voice trembled in the silence of the night. Heavy tears rolled down her pale cheeks. "What did he do to you?" Rebecca gripped the doorframe until her knuckles turned white, her gaze glued to the laptop screen where the man's face she'd once trusted with her daughter's musical education had been replaced by a black, empty window. "What did he do to you?" "He said he loved me." Olivia sobbed, her body shaking with sobs. "He said if I tell anyone, you'll hate me, and no one will ever believe again that I—" The sound of breaking glass interrupted her words. Rebecca swept the vase off the bedside table in rage, her face distorted with unbearable pain and anger. "I will hunt him down. I swear to you, Olivia, I will find him and make him pay for every tear you shed. The most interesting part is coming. Stay with us to find out how it all ends. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't lose it." The evening lights of Portland twinkled outside her window as Rebecca Carter glanced at her watch for the third time in 10 minutes. 9 o'clock. Olivia was almost an hour late from her music lesson. It was unlike her usually punctual daughter. Rebecca nervously ran her fingers across the screen of her phone, checking for messages. Finally, the phone beeped and she grabbed it instantly. "Mom, Mr. Harlow said today's lesson will be half an hour longer. I'll be a little late. I'll be home soon." Rebecca quickly typed out a reply, trying to suppress her undue anxiety. "Okay, honey, but hurry, it's dark." She sighed, her brow furrowing involuntarily at the mention of Nathan Harlow's name. The 43-year-old music teacher had started teaching at the Portland School of the Arts just 6 months ago. During that time, Olivia had been spending more and more time in her classes, often returning home with distant eyes and monosyllabic answers to her mother's questions. The front door opened, and Olivia stepped into the apartment, closing it quietly behind her. In the dim light of the living room, Rebecca noticed that her 15-year-old daughter was avoiding direct eye contact. "You're back," Rebecca said softly, trying not to show her anxiety. "Why did the lesson take so long?" "Mr. Harlow wanted us to learn a new piece. Beethoven. A difficult piece." Olivia's voice was strangely distant. "Sorry I'm late." "It's okay. I made dinner. You're probably hungry." "No, Mom. I'm just tired. I'll go to my room if that's okay." Rebecca wanted to protest, but Olivia was already climbing the stairs, leaving her mother standing there, confused. Something was definitely wrong. Her mother's intuition, which had not failed her for 15 years, was screaming danger. It was 2 a.m. Rebecca was awakened by the sound of pouring rain pounding the roof of their small 2-story house. As she went out into the hallway to get a glass of water, she noticed a thin strip of light coming from under Olivia's door. "Olivia, why aren't you asleep yet? Is everything okay?" She knocked softly. There was no answer. Anxiety rose in a wave, and Rebecca, overcoming her inner resistance, she always respected her daughter's personal space, carefully opened the door. What she saw made her heart stop. Olivia sat in front of her computer with headphones on, her face illuminated by the flickering light of the screen. On the monitor, Rebecca saw a middle-aged man, Nathan Harlow. His voice was soft, almost mesmerizing, but there was something alarmingly wrong with his intonation that made the hairs on the back of Rebecca's neck stand up. "My dear Olivia, you know how much I miss you. I wish you were here with me now. Did you get my gift? You never showed it to anyone, did you? It's our secret." When Nathan noticed Rebecca at the door, his face changed, his eyes widened, and he instantly ended the call. The screen went black. Rebecca froze. Her hands began to shake, and her throat tightened with horror and anger. "Olivia, what is happening?" She struggled with each word. "Why is Mr. Harlow calling you at 2 a.m? Olivia turned around abruptly, yanking off her headphones, her face contorted in fear, her eyes filling with tears. "Mom, I just—" Rebecca ran over, kneeling in front of her daughter, her hands shaking as she took Olivia's cold ones in her own. "Olivia, tell me, what are you hiding? How long has this been going on? Why have you been silent?" Olivia began to shake, tears flowing freely down her face. "I couldn't, Mom. I was afraid." The girl's voice broke. "Afraid of what, Olivia? Please tell me." Olivia burst into tears, her fragile shoulders shaking with sobs. "He said, if I tell anyone, everyone will hate me, that you'll be angry, that you won't love me anymore." Rebecca hugged her daughter tightly, trying to contain the whirlwind of emotions raging inside her. Pain and rage burned in her chest, but she knew she had to stay strong now. "My girl, why did you think that? No matter what happens, I will always be there. Why didn't you trust me? Olivia cried even harder, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. He said it was our secret, that he really cared about me, that it was true love. But I was so scared, Mom. So hard. Every word her daughter said was like a knife in her heart. Rebecca hugged Olivia even tighter, fighting the nausea that was creeping up on her. Listen to me, Olivia. Her voice became firm despite the trembling. This is not love. This is manipulation. Deception. You are not guilty of anything. Do you hear me? Of anything. But I'm so scared, Mom, Olivia whispered barely audibly. I don't know what to do. From now on, you have no right to contact him anymore. Understand? I will protect you. No one will hurt you again. Yes, Mom, but I'm so afraid of him. Rebecca looked into her daughter's reddened eyes. Her voice was firm, although inside she was seething with rage. I swear to you, Olivia, I won't let him hurt you anymore, even if I have to sacrifice everything. The rain grew heavier, pounding the windows with growing fury. Rebecca held her daughter in the darkness of the room until she fell asleep, exhausted by tears and fear. Rebecca's thoughts darted around like frightened birds. Nathan Harlow, the man she trusted with her daughter's musical education. The man who was supposed to introduce Olivia to the world of art. Instead, he turned out to be a predator who manipulated and crippled a fragile child's soul. Olivia stirred in her sleep, and Rebecca gently stroked her hair. Mom, I'm really scared, Olivia muttered sleepily. I won't let anyone hurt you again, my sweet girl. I swear it, Rebecca whispered, hugging her daughter tighter. After a while, Olivia stopped sobbing, though tears still glistened on her eyelashes. She looked up at her mother, and Rebecca saw in her eyes an expression of absolute fear and confusion. Mr. Harlow, he started messaging me on social media a few months ago, Olivia began, her voice shaking. At first, it was just messages about music, about my successes. Then he started telling me how special I was, that I wasn't like everyone else. He started asking for pictures of me. He said he wanted to see what I looked like outside of school. Rebecca gritted her teeth but nodded silently, giving her daughter a chance to speak. Then he started calling in the evenings. He said he was thinking about me, that I was the most talented of all his students, that we had a special connection. I didn't know what to do, Mom. He said it was our secret. If I told anyone, he would tell everyone that I was bad, that I seduced him. Rebecca couldn't believe her ears. Nathan Harlow, a man with an impeccable reputation, praised by all parents, turned out to be a monster stalking children. What exactly did he do to you, Olivia? You have to tell me everything. I can't let this continue. I don't know what to do, Mom. I'm scared, Olivia began to cry again, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. My dear girl, it's not your fault. I won't let Mr. Harlow hurt you again. Do you understand? Rebecca said quietly, stroking her daughter's hair, although inside she was seething with rage. Olivia looked up at her with tear-stained eyes. I don't even know where to begin. Mr. Harlow always said nice things to me. He said I was special, talented. I didn't think it was a bad thing. I just thought he liked me as a student. I understand, Rebecca interrupted softly, looking her daughter straight in the eye. He made you feel special, made you believe that it was real caring, even love. But that's not love, Olivia. That's manipulation. That's psychological abuse. None of this is your fault. Olivia was silent, but a spark of hope began to appear on her face. She looked at her mother, and for the first time in a long time, a glimmer of trust flickered in her eyes. Mom, I'm scared, but I want this to end. I want Mr. Harlow to answer for what he did, Olivia whispered, clenching her hands into fists. Rebecca stroked her daughter's hair gently, the rage inside her raging like a hurricane, but her voice remained calm. I promise you, Olivia, I will not let Mr. Harlow get away with this. I will show you that no one can violate your boundaries and get away with it. You have been very brave, and I will help you get back on your feet. Outside, the rain continued to pour, but in the dark room between mother and daughter, a light of trust and hope began to break through. Rebecca woke at dawn, her head heavy from a sleepless night. Olivia was still asleep, curled up at her side. Careful not to wake her daughter, Rebecca got out of bed. The conversation from yesterday played like a painful carousel in her head. She knew that Olivia's life would never be the same again. The pain was like an unhealed wound, tearing at her heart. But if she didn't act now, the pain would remain forever. Rebecca quickly dressed, threw on her coat, and began planning her next steps. She would no longer remain silent today. She intended to get justice for her daughter, no matter the cost. Arriving at Olivia's school early in the morning, Rebecca headed resolutely to the principal's office. "I need to speak to Principal Thompson immediately," she told the secretary, trying to remain calm. "It concerns one of the teachers." "The director is busy, Mrs. Carter. Perhaps you could schedule the meeting for another time." The secretary looked at Rebecca with bewilderment. "No, this can't wait." Rebecca felt her patience wearing thin. "This is about the children's safety. I have to talk to him immediately." Something in her tone made the secretary comply. 5 minutes later, Rebecca was sitting in the office of Director Thompson, an imposing man with graying temples and tired eyes. "How can I help you, Mrs. Carter?" "I want information about Nathan Harlow," Rebecca's voice shook with barely contained rage. "I want his full name, address, and previous employment." The principal raised his eyebrows in surprise. "May I ask the reason for such interest?" "Mr. Harlow is a respected teacher at our school." Rebecca leaned forward, her eyes blazing with anger. "Mr. Harlow isn't just a teacher. He's a predator. He harmed my daughter. He manipulated her, used social media to establish inappropriate relationships." The director's expression changed, suddenly becoming wary. "That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Carter. Do you have any evidence?" "I found my daughter at 2 a.m. on a video call with him. He was telling her things no adult should ever say to a child. He was sending her messages, manipulating her, and I demand that you take action immediately." Principal Thompson looked out the window, then said slowly, "Mr. Harlow resigned last night, via email, no specific reason given." Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. "What?" "He no longer works at our school," the principal repeated. "I can give you his resume, but we don't have an address. Perhaps you should contact the police." Rebecca stood up, her hands shaking with rage. "Do you know anything about this man? Have there been any complaints before?" The principal looked away. "There have been no formal complaints, but there was a conversation with a mother a few weeks ago. Nothing specific, just a concern that Mr. Harlow was spending too much time with her daughter after school." "And you didn't do anything?" Rebecca felt a new wave of anger boiling inside her. "We couldn't take action without specific accusations or evidence. It could have been a simple misunderstanding." Rebecca stood up abruptly. "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a crime. And if the education system isn't going to protect our children, I'm going to do it myself." She walked out of the principal's office without looking back. Her worst fears had been confirmed. Nathan Harlow had fled after learning he had been exposed. But he wouldn't get far. She wouldn't let him get away with it. An hour later, Rebecca was already at the police station, heading resolutely toward the officer on duty. "I want to report a crime against my minor daughter," she said, trying to speak clearly despite the lump in her throat. The officer looked up from his papers, his face expressing professional indifference. "What kind of crime, ma'am?" "Harassment and psychological abuse. My daughter's teacher, Nathan Harlow, manipulated her through social media, called her in the middle of the night, forced her to keep everything a secret." The officer began recording information. "Was there physical contact?" "No. I don't know for sure. My daughter is in shock. She didn't tell me everything. But this man is a predator. He must be stopped immediately." "We will document your statement, Mrs. Carter," the officer nodded, "but we will need concrete evidence. Messages, phone records, photographs. Without it, we will not be able to begin an investigation." Rebecca stood there stunned. They were asking her to prove something that even she could barely comprehend. Nathan's actions were so subtle and manipulative. How could a mother prove that her daughter had been abused when the girl herself barely understood what had happened to her? "I don't have any records of his calls, but my 15-year-old daughter was receiving messages from a 43-year-old man in the middle of the night. Isn't that enough to even start an investigation?" "We understand your concern, Mrs. Carter, but the law requires proof. You should check your daughter's phone and computer, collect all available messages, and return with that information." Rebecca walked out of the police station feeling devastated. The system that was supposed to protect her child had turned its back on them, demanding proof. Meanwhile, Nathan Harlow could continue his hunt for other children. It was almost dark when Rebecca returned home. Olivia was sitting on her bed, staring blankly out the window. She was no longer the girl Rebecca had known all her life, the bright, enthusiastic young pianist with dreams of the conservatory. She was looking at a scared, broken child. Rebecca sat down next to her daughter, trying to speak calmly despite the rage seething inside her. Olivia, I will do everything in my power to protect you. I will not give up. But Mom, what do we do now? Olivia asked, her voice full of confusion. I've already contacted the police. I'll continue to gather evidence. I need to check your phone and computer, Olivia. We need all messages from Mr. Harlow. Mom, but I'm so scared. I'm scared of what he might do to us. Olivia's voice trembled. Rebecca took her daughter's hand, trying to give her confidence. I will protect you. You must trust me, Olivia. Olivia remained silent, her eyes clouded. She still wasn't sure if she could trust her mother's words. But even so, in that moment, a small spark of hope began to break through the ashes of her fear. Rebecca decided to look up Nathan Harlow's previous jobs. Through the internet and a few phone calls, she learned that before Portland, he had worked at 3 other music schools around the country, and at each of them, his departure was shrouded in secrecy. She contacted the administration of one of these schools, but received only evasive answers. No one wanted to talk about Nathan Harlow. This only increased her suspicions. Through social media, Rebecca found a former employee at Westridge High School in California, where Nathan had worked 2 years earlier. The woman, Janet Wilson, agreed to meet her via video call. You want to talk about Nathan Harlow? Janet looked nervous even through the screen. Why are you interested? He hurt my daughter, Rebecca replied bluntly, and I'm trying to gather information to stop him. Janet was silent for a long moment, then sighed heavily. He was not just an ordinary teacher. Everything became strange when one of the girls complained about inappropriate behavior. Rebecca was suddenly shocked. What exactly happened? Harlow left for an unusual reason. He left under suspicion, but we had no concrete evidence, and the principal chose to hush up the matter to avoid a scandal. Sweet talk, special attention to certain students, it all began to add up to an unpleasant picture. Do you know of any other students who have been harmed by him? I need evidence so the police can act. He worked at 3 other schools. Every time something happened, he disappeared without a trace. No one knew where he went next, Janet answered, lowering her voice. There's a parent, Sarah Miller. Her daughter Emma was a student at Harlow. Sarah tried to raise the alarm, but no one listened. Perhaps you should talk to her. A wave of confusion and determination washed over Rebecca. She stood up, thanked Janet, and ended the video call. Now she knew Nathan Harlow had hurt more than just Olivia. He was a serial predator, moving from place to place, leaving a trail of broken children in his wake. Rebecca's next step was to look for information through other sources. She began looking through articles and online posts about Nathan Harlow, hoping to find something that would help her gather evidence. While scrolling through a support group for parents whose children had been abused, she came across a post that made her heart skip a beat. My nightmare named NH is a music teacher who made my daughter's life mess. Has anyone else experienced something similar? The author of the post was Sarah Miller, the woman Janet had mentioned. A mixture of anxiety and hope flared in Rebecca's chest. She immediately sent a private message and waited impatiently for a response. A few hours later, her phone rang. An unknown name appeared on the screen. Sarah Miller. Hello. Rebecca's voice trembled with excitement. Is this Rebecca Carter? My name is Sarah Miller. You left me a message about Nathan Harlow? Yes, it's me. My daughter. I know, Sarah's voice softened. I went through the same thing with my Emma. We need to meet. They agreed to meet the next day at a cafe near Rebecca's home. It seemed as if the clouds were beginning to part, allowing a glimmer of hope to break through the darkness of despair. The Morning Star Cafe was nearly empty when Rebecca walked inside, looking around nervously for Sarah Miller. In the corner at a table by the window sat a woman about her age, with chestnut hair pulled back into a messy bun and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too much pain. Sarah? Rebecca asked, approaching the table. The woman nodded, pointing to the chair opposite. You must be Rebecca. Sit down. As soon as Rebecca sat down, the emotions she had been holding in came pouring out. Tears began to stream down her cheeks. I'm so sorry you're going through this, Sarah said softly, handing her a napkin. I know how you feel. My daughter Emma went through the same thing. What did Harlow do to your daughter? Sarah took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Harlow started working with Emma when she was 13. She was talented, and he knew it. He used her gift to gain her trust. Compliments, special attention, extra tutoring. Then the messages on social media, the late-night calls, the gifts. Oh God, Rebecca whispered, recognizing Olivia's story in every word. He made my daughter believe it was love, that he was the only one who truly understood her. Sarah's voice grew quieter as the painful memories surfaced. When I discovered what was happening, Emma was already completely under his control. She was protecting him. She said I didn't understand. But you couldn't do anything, Rebecca asked, her voice shaking. We tried to report it to the police, but we didn't have enough evidence. Emma deleted all the messages and photos. We only had a short video of one call with Harlow, but even that wasn't enough to prove what he did. Rebecca bit her lip, unable to contain her rage. These children had been cruelly manipulated, and the system had failed them. What do we do now? She asked, feeling completely lost. Sarah paused, then her eyes lit up with determination. I think we need to find the other girls. The ones he tricked too. Together we can stop him. Rebecca nodded, her resolve stronger than ever. She would not let Nathan Harlow get away with this. She would protect not only her daughter, but any children this monster might deceive in the future. Do you still have that video? Rebecca asked, suddenly realizing that it could be key evidence. Yes, I have it. I saved it, even though Emma asked me to delete it. Something told me I might need it. Can you show me? Sarah pulled out her phone and hesitated before turning on the video. On the screen was Nathan Harlow, a close-up of his face. He was smiling, but there was something predatory about it that made Rebecca shudder. Emma, my dear, you know how much I miss you, he said in a soft, almost hypnotic voice. I can't wait until we meet again. Remember, this is our secret. Don't tell anyone. They won't understand our special connection. Your mother will be angry if she finds out. Rebecca felt her blood run cold. The same words, the same manipulations that Olivia had been subjected to. Nathan Harlow was following a well-established pattern, moving from one victim to another. This is proof, Sarah. With this video and the messages that are hopefully saved on Olivia's computer, we can go to the police. They can't ignore two mothers with concrete evidence. Sarah nodded, but there was still a wary look in her eyes. Be prepared for this not to be easy. The system is often not on the side of the victims. But together, we might have a chance. They exchanged numbers and email addresses, agreeing to stick together in this fight. For the first time in 2 days, Rebecca felt a glimmer of real hope. She was no longer alone. Back home, Rebecca began going through Olivia's phone, which her daughter had reluctantly entrusted to her. She found old messages that Olivia had not yet deleted. Messages from Nathan that seemed polite, but were actually filled with hidden manipulation. Olivia, your performance today was amazing. You are special, not like other girls. Remember, our conversations are just between us. Others will not understand our connection. I'd really like to see what you look like outside of school. Can you send me a photo? The messages pierced Rebecca's heart like icy arrows. Without hesitation, she began collecting all the evidence she could. Text messages, saved images, browser history. On Olivia's computer, she even found a few audio recordings. The girl's wireless headphones had been left on by mistake during some calls, and the program had automatically saved them. Rebecca felt that there was some movement. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a solid start to the fight ahead. She decided to hand it over to the police and continue to work with Sarah and other mothers who had lived through the same pain she now lived through. That evening, when Olivia returned from the school psychologist, where Rebecca had taken her that morning, her mother was ready for a serious conversation. Olivia, I found the messages from Mr. Harlow. I now know more about what happened, but I won't let him hurt you again. I promise, Rebecca said, her eyes full of determination. Olivia looked at her mother, her gaze filled with fear, but also a faint spark of hope. Mom, I'm so scared, she whispered. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to live in the dark anymore, Rebecca replied softly, hugging her daughter. In that moment, Rebecca knew her daughter would not go through this alone. She would fight not only for Olivia, but for every child Nathan Harlow had deceived or might deceive in the future. Sarah's words kept coming back to her. We need to find the other girls he was manipulating. That became her next target. She couldn't let Harlow hide any longer while she continued her hunt. With each passing day, Olivia's fear grew, and Rebecca knew that only action could restore her daughter's safety and trust in the world. The next morning, Rebecca continued her investigation. With Sarah's help, she began contacting other parents whose children might have been Harlow's victims. But she didn't expect the blow that would come from the man she once trusted. A chance encounter with Officer Jennifer Martinez, an old friend she hadn't seen in years, put Rebecca in an unexpected situation. She was walking down a main street in Portland when she suddenly ran into Jennifer, dressed in a police uniform. Rebecca! My God, how old are you? Officer Martinez exclaimed, hugging her old friend. Hi, Jen. Rebecca hesitated. She didn't want to bring up the pain right away, but looking into Jennifer's genuinely concerned eyes, she couldn't help herself. We're in trouble, Jen. My daughter, Olivia, she was hurt by a teacher. I'm trying to figure it out. Jennifer's expression changed, her eyes widening in shock. Oh my God, seriously, I can't believe this. What teacher? Rebecca felt the anger rising in her chest again. Nathan Harlow, music teacher. I already found out. He left 3 schools before this one without explanation, and now he's disappeared. Officer Martinez paused, then became more serious. Harlow, I heard rumors. They said he was weird, but no one knew the whole story. She took Rebecca's hand. Look, Becky, I'll help you. I'm not officially handling the case, but I can advise. Tell me everything you know. Rebecca felt a surge of gratitude. Finally, someone in the system was willing to help her. Thank you, Jen. I don't know what I would do without you. That's what friends are for, Jennifer smiled. Now let's talk about how we can catch this scoundrel. The next day, Rebecca and Sarah met at the same cafe. Sarah looked excited. There was a sparkle in her eyes. I have news, she said, lowering her voice. My daughter Emma has a video, an old recording of a conversation with Harlow. She didn't want to keep it, but after what you said, I think we can use it as evidence. Rebecca clasped her hands, her heart pounding with excitement. She had finally found the key piece of the puzzle. Thank you, Sarah. This video is exactly what we need. I'll contact my friend at the police station, Officer Martinez. She'll help us file the report correctly. After receiving the video from Sarah, Rebecca immediately went to Jennifer. Now she had no patience to wait. She wanted to act. The video was short, but showed Nathan Harlow instructing Emma on the importance of keeping their relationship a secret and using inappropriately intimate language towards a child. Jennifer, after watching the video, nodded. This is serious evidence, Rebecca. We can start an official investigation. But I must warn you, we will still need more evidence to detain him. However, we can begin the search. Rebecca felt her stomach tighten. Why was this so complicated? She had done everything she could, gathered every bit of information. But would it be enough to bring Nathan Harlow to justice? The next day, while Rebecca was bogged down in legal paperwork and filings, Olivia received a strange message from an anonymous account. Despite her mother's warnings not to contact Harlow, Olivia couldn't resist opening it. If you don't shut up, your mother will pay. The message horrified Olivia. She immediately blocked the account, but the fear did not go away. Her mother could not protect her forever. Harlow's threats haunted her like a ghost. When Rebecca found out about this, she was on the verge of a breakdown. She grabbed the phone and immediately called Jennifer. He's threatening my daughter. I want him found right now. Keep this message, Rebecca. It's more evidence. We'll put him on the wanted list. But you and Olivia might want to get away for a while. Do you have a place to stay so he doesn't know where you are? Rebecca thought about her sister, who lived in the suburbs of Portland. Yes, there is such a place. Okay, leave today. I'll keep you updated on the investigation. Rebecca grabbed her daughter and went to stay with her sister Megan for a few days. But the fire inside her was only growing. Nathan Harlow had not only hurt Olivia, he was now threatening their lives. Mom, what do we do now? Olivia asked, her voice shaking as she sat on the couch, not taking her eyes off her mother. No one will hurt you, Olivia. We will not give up, Rebecca said firmly, even though her heart was breaking with rage and fear. Rebecca looked at Olivia. There was a determination in her eyes that nothing could shake. She knew Nathan Harlow would pay for everything he had done. Nothing would stop her. That night at her sister's house, Rebecca couldn't sleep. Anger and fear were plaguing her. She watched the video Sarah had provided over and over, searching for anything that might help her find Harlow. Late that evening, her phone rang. An unknown number appeared on the screen. A chill ran down her spine. What if it was Harlow? Instead of answering, she blocked the number and went back to her work. She would not let him lead her astray. After the call, Rebecca focused again on the evidence she had collected. Each piece was terrifying, but important. She now had videos, messages, threats, and testimonies from Sarah and the other parents. But she couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. The police needed more, but did they have enough to get justice? The next morning, as Rebecca was getting Olivia ready for school, insisting that she not interrupt her studies despite what was happening, another message arrived. This time, not from an anonymous account, but from a registered number. You're being watched. If you don't shut up, something bad will happen. Rebecca felt a storm unfold inside her. This was no longer a vague threat. This was a real warning. This was dangerous. He didn't just want silence, he wanted to break her, make her surrender. She couldn't wait any longer. Something had to be done to protect Olivia. There was no way she was going to let Nathan Harlow hurt his daughter again. Olivia, Rebecca said to her daughter, her voice shaking with worry, "We have to be very careful. Mr. Harlow, he's dangerous." Olivia was still reeling from everything that had happened. But deep down, she knew there was only one way out of this nightmare. They had to face the truth. At the police station, Jennifer Martinez received them personally. She carefully reviewed all the evidence Rebecca had collected and nodded with a serious expression. "We will issue a wanted notice for Harlow and open a formal investigation. This evidence gives us grounds to apply for a warrant for his arrest. The full procedure may take some time, from a few days to a week, but you and Olivia need to be extremely careful. Such threats indicate that he may be truly dangerous." "What should we do?" Rebecca asked, feeling fear mixed with determination. "Stay with your sister. Don't go to your usual places. Change your routes and report any suspicious contacts or messages to me." Rebecca nodded. Now she knew. This wasn't just a matter of justice. This was a matter of her family's safety. That night, as Rebecca was returning to her sister's house after going to the store, she received a phone call from an unknown number. This time, she didn't hesitate and answered immediately, turning on the call recording on the second phone. "Hello, Rebecca. I'm sure you've already received my messages. What do you think you can do to stop me?" The voice on the other end of the line was cold, emotionless. Rebecca froze. She recognized that voice immediately. It was Nathan Harlow. He was toying with her, testing her limits. "Do you think you can get away with this, Nathan? I won't let you hurt my daughter anymore." "Say what you want, Rebecca, but the truth is, you can't touch me. I'll always be here, watching over you and your daughter until you learn that the smartest thing to do is just keep quiet." Nathan laughed, his voice dripping with the venom of mockery. Rebecca seemed to freeze when she heard these words, but almost immediately rage flared up inside her. "No, Nathan, you will not win. You will answer for everything you have done. I will not back down." The call ended abruptly, but Nathan's words still rang in her ears. She immediately sent the recording of the call to Jennifer, adding another piece of evidence to the growing case against Harlow. Later that evening, Rebecca's phone rang again. This time it was Sarah. "Rebecca, we can handle this. Emma has agreed to testify and provide another video." Rebecca breathed a sigh of relief. The tension in her chest eased a little, but she knew this was just the beginning. One video wasn't enough to get justice. She needed more. She needed the support of others. "Thank you, Sarah. How is Emma? Is she holding up?" "She's scared, but she's determined. She doesn't want Harlow to hurt the other girls. We have to stick together. The more victims that come forward, the easier it will be to build a case," Sarah continued, her voice calm but determined. Rebecca felt a surge of new energy. She was no longer alone in this fight. Other mothers, women who had experienced the same pain, were also ready to stand up to Nathan Harlow. The next day, Rebecca met a group of parents at the same cafe where she had first met Sarah. They sat together, each with her own story. There was concern on their faces, but also determination. None of them wanted to let the predator go free. "We can't let him get away with it," said a woman named Laura, her eyes shining. "My daughter Madison was deceived by him too. He made her believe that everything he did was okay, that it was love." Rebecca looked at the women around her. They weren't weak. They were warriors. Mothers who fought for their children. They weren't afraid anymore. They were ready to face the truth. "We will not stop until Nathan Harlow is brought to justice," Rebecca said, her voice firm. After the meeting, Rebecca felt a fire igniting inside her. She knew she couldn't back down now. It was time to take decisive action. With Jennifer's help, she filed a formal complaint with the court, including all the evidence she had collected, videos, messages, and victims' testimonies. She hoped that this time things would change. Late in the evening, Jennifer called to give the latest news. "We have started tracking Harlow via his phone, bank cards, and electronic traces. We have a warrant to obtain data from ISPs and social media. Thank you for providing the evidence. It has become the basis for a court order. It may take a few days to a week, but we will find him. Don't give up." Rebecca felt a glimmer of hope. Things were finally moving in the right direction, but she knew that despite the progress, danger was still around the corner. Nathan Harlow could be hiding, or he could find a way to escape. After 5 agonizing days of waiting, The police had their results. Harlow's digital footprint placed him in Vancouver, a small city on the Washington border, just a half-hour drive from Portland. Technicians discovered that he had created a new account on a social media site for musicians and had already begun corresponding with a 13-year-old violinist. He was still hiding, still looking for more victims. But now the police had all the information they needed to act. "We're setting up an operation," Jennifer said. "This is our chance to catch him. We'll set a trap." Rebecca felt exhausted, but she knew that everything she had done had been worth it. She couldn't give up now, not after going through so much. Early that morning, Rebecca, Sarah, and the other parents gathered together, waiting for news from the police. They were nervous, unsure if they would be able to arrest Nathan. But they knew one thing for sure. They had done everything they could. They stood up to protect their children and refused to let a criminal walk free. Just a few hours later, the news finally came. Nathan Harlow had been arrested while trying to contact a new student through an online music tutoring app. Rebecca couldn't believe her ears. She let out a breath she hadn't even realized she'd been holding. But with the relief came a wave of rage and pain for everything Nathan had done. Police seized Nathan's computer, as well as messages, videos, and other evidence related to his crimes. At the same time, other victims began to come forward, joining the investigation and helping to clarify the full extent of the abuse. Rebecca felt like the door to justice had finally opened, but the path to healing for Olivia and the other girls was just beginning. The day of Nathan Harlow's preliminary hearing arrived. Rebecca, Olivia, Sarah, and Emma stood together outside the courthouse. Each of them stood tall, none of them backed down. Each had a reason to speak out, to protect themselves and the other children from Nathan's abuse. As they entered the courtroom, the air was tense. Witnesses were in place, and a group of parents and victims were ready to testify. Rebecca felt a tightness in her chest, but she knew she couldn't stop now. Nathan wore a dark suit, his expression cold, as if nothing had happened. But Rebecca saw something in his eyes, a self-confidence she couldn't quite describe. It was as if he still believed he could escape punishment. "Does the defendant have anything to say?" the judge asked, his gaze stern as he looked at Nathan. Nathan didn't answer right away. He looked around the room, then finally spoke in a calm voice. "I did nothing wrong. These charges are fabricated. I was simply teaching my students, sharing my knowledge and passion for music." His words caused an uproar in the courtroom. Some parents began to whisper indignantly, while Olivia and the other victims sat silently. Their eyes were burning with anger. They would not let him get away with it. Their voices were finally heard, and they were no longer afraid. "I can't believe he would say that," Sarah whispered to Rebecca. Rebecca didn't answer. Fury was boiling inside her. He was lying right in front of everyone, but every word he said only made his guilt more obvious. The judge continued the hearing. "Miss Olivia, are you ready to tell us what happened to you?" Olivia stood up and walked to the podium, clutching her written statement. She looked straight at Nathan. There was no longer fear in her eyes. She was ready. She didn't want to live in the dark anymore. "Mr. Harlow lied to me through social media. He said it was love, but I was scared every time he spoke to me. He said it was our secret, that my mom would be mad if I told anyone," Olivia said, her voice soft but firm. "I was scared, but my mother kept telling me that it was not my fault. She helped me understand that it was not love. He was a liar." Olivia's words struck Nathan like lightning. He froze, unable to look her in the eyes. One by one, the other victims came to the stand. Each shared their story of psychological abuse at the hands of Nathan. Their testimony painted a clear and devastating picture of his crimes. Nathan tried to defend himself, but nothing he said mattered. The evidence was there. The witnesses had come forward, and it was impossible to deny his guilt. After hours of testimony and consideration of the evidence, the judge set a date for the main trial in 6 weeks and confirmed the previously ordered pre-sentence detention. Despite efforts by Harlow's lawyer to secure bail, given the gravity of the charges and the proven risk of witness tampering, Nathan was denied bail. He will not be released until the trial is complete. After the hearing ended, Rebecca walked out holding Olivia's hand. She felt a relief she had never felt before. Although her daughter still carried the pain inside, at least today she could begin to live her life anew, no longer in fear. "Mom, thank you. I'm so glad he's finally going to be held accountable for what he did," Olivia said, her voice filled with emotion. "I'm so proud of you, Olivia. You were so brave. I know you won't have to suffer anymore," Rebecca replied, her eyes full of love and pride. They left without another word, but both felt liberated in their hearts. They had fought and won. Nathan, that vile man, would now face justice, and justice had finally prevailed. Rebecca and Olivia sat together in their small home, a place that had once held only the shadows of old pain. But today was different. Today was the day fear no longer ruled them. Olivia sat next to her mother, her eyes shining with determination. She was no longer a confused child who suffered in silence. Today she was a warrior, and today she was starting over. "Mom, I'm not scared anymore. I finally did it," Olivia said, her voice confident, her eyes full of determination. Rebecca looked at her daughter and smiled softly. With each passing day, the joy of life slowly returned. The wounds might not heal instantly, but at least they had faced the truth, and that was the most important step. "I will always be proud of you. You fought and you won. I know you will become even stronger," Rebecca said, gently smoothing Olivia's hair. Olivia looked at her mother, no longer weighed down by the fears that had once paralyzed her every step. Now, every step she took was lighter, no longer weighed down by the ghosts of the past. She looked out the window, where the first rays of sunlight were breaking through the darkness, and felt as if the whole world belonged to her. A few days later, Olivia returned to school. She was no longer intimidated by the stares of her classmates, the same stares that had once made her feel like an outcast. Now everything had changed. Olivia wasn't afraid anymore. She walked down the school hallway step by step, no longer afraid of whispers or judgment. When Olivia entered the classroom, the teacher greeted her with a warm smile, and her classmates looked at her with kindness. Everything seemed to be back to normal, but for Olivia, nothing was the same anymore. She knew she had changed. She was no longer who she used to be. She had overcome her past and become stronger, unshackled by fear. "Hello, Olivia. How are you feeling today?" the teacher asked kindly. "I feel much better. Thank you," Olivia replied with a smile. Her eyes were shining. The weight of the past began to disappear with each passing day. Olivia was getting back to what she loved. She started playing music again, but now with a new teacher, an older woman named Eleanor, who had gone through something similar and found healing through music. Eleanor became a source of inspiration for Olivia, teaching her not only notes and rhythm, but also self-love and how to cope with life's challenges. "I'm going to write a new song," Olivia told her teacher one day during class. "That's wonderful, Olivia. This song could be a big step forward in your journey," Eleanor replied, her voice full of encouragement. Olivia began writing lyrics about strength, overcoming fear, and finding light in the darkest moments. The song was called "No More Scared," and it became her declaration of a new beginning. As the school festival approached, Olivia finished her song. She decided to perform it that day as a way to declare that she had overcome all the terrible things that had happened to her. She was no longer a scared child, but a growing young woman, confident in herself, her path, and who she had become. On the day of the show, when Olivia walked onto the stage, the room was silent. The spotlight fell on her, and she began to sing. The melody was soft and powerful, and the words were even more powerful. Each note was a statement of freedom and strength, each word a healing. "I am strong, I am free. There is no more fear in me." Olivia sang with all her heart, and when the last chord faded, the entire hall exploded in applause. Rebecca, sitting in the front row, looked at her daughter with eyes full of pride. Her girl had stood up, fought, and overcome everything. After the performance, Olivia's classmates came up to congratulate her. They praised not only her talent, but also admired her strength. Olivia was no longer isolated. She proved that strength is not only in heroic deeds, but also in the courage to rise after every fall. A few weeks later, Rebecca joined a support group for mothers of abused children. She wanted to help other mothers recognize warning signs and learn how to fight to protect their children. Rebecca met many mothers in the group, and each story reminded her that she was not alone. These parents, like her, all carried pain and hope. One day, while talking to another mother, Rebecca felt a deep connection. She realized that even though she had been through darkness, she could now share her story and help others. "My daughter did it. She found herself again. I know not everyone gets that chance, but if we stand together, we can help each other," Rebecca shared, her voice full of compassion. Not only did these words comfort the other mother, but they also helped Rebecca realize that through all the pain, she had found something important. Justice had been served, and while the past would always be a part of their lives, they were no longer afraid. 6 weeks of preparation for the main trial flew by, with intense work with prosecutors, psychologists, and support groups. Finally, the decisive day arrived, the start of Nathan Harlow's trial. Rebecca and Olivia walked into the courthouse holding hands. They were joined by Sarah, Emma, and 7 other affected families the prosecution had identified during its investigation. Together, they formed an unstoppable force, parents and children united by their shared pain, but also by an unshakable hope for justice. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, usually barred from juvenile cases, were allowed in because the case had caused a public stir. The story of Nathan Harlow, a serial manipulator who had stalked children across the country, was now public. Rebecca saw Olivia tense up when she saw Nathan. He looked smaller and less confident than before in his orange prison jumpsuit. His lawyer was whispering something in his ear, but Nathan seemed to barely listen. "Are you okay?" Rebecca asked quietly, squeezing her daughter's hand. Olivia nodded, determination in her eyes. "Yes, Mom, I'm ready." The trial began. The prosecutor, a spirited woman named Alicia Wright, presented the charges. Psychological abuse of minors, harassment, threats, use of electronic means of communication to harass minors. Nathan Harlow is not just a teacher who abused a position of trust. He is a serial predator who methodically chose his victims, moving from school to school, leaving a trail of broken children's souls in his wake. Her voice echoed throughout the room. Nathan's lawyer tried to portray his actions as a misunderstanding, as genuine concern misinterpreted. But then the witnesses began to speak. Olivia was first. She sat on the witness stand, straight and determined. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "He told me I was special, that we had a special connection. At first it felt flattering to be noticed by such a talented teacher. But then everything changed. He started calling me late at night, asking for my photos, telling me he thought about me all the time, that he missed me." "Tell the court how these contacts affected you," Prosecutor Wright asked. "I stopped sleeping. I was afraid to check my phone, but I was also afraid not to check it in case he got mad if I didn't answer. I started to think that this whole secret was my fault, that I had somehow provoked him. I felt dirty, spoiled." Nathan's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, these are subjective feelings. We have no evidence that my client—" "Overruled," the judge was curt. "Go ahead, Ms. Carter." Olivia told everything. Every text, every call, every manipulation. Rebecca saw some of the jurors wiping away tears. Then it was the other girls' turn. Emma, Madison, and 4 other girls from different schools where Nathan worked. Their stories were eerily similar. The same scenario, played out over and over again on different kids. Once all the testimony had been given, the prosecutor presented physical evidence. Message recordings, screenshots, audio recordings of calls collected by the parents and the police. "Your Honor, jury, this is not an isolated incident of misunderstanding. This is a systematic, repeatable pattern of behavior by a predator who deliberately and methodically selected his victims, manipulated them, and exploited their trust for his own benefit." Nathan at one point tried to speak out, claiming he was misunderstood and that his intentions were pure. "Mr. Harlow," the judge interrupted, "your intentions are clear from the evidence, and they are far from pure." On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was so crowded that some had to stand. Rebecca held Olivia's hand as the judge returned to the courtroom after jury deliberations. "Rise, the court is in session." Everyone stood up. Rebecca felt her heart pounding. This moment would determine whether their fight had been worth it. "Jury, have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." In the case of State v. Nathan Harlow on charges of first-degree psychological abuse of a minor, on charges of electronic stalking, on charges of threatening and intimidating a witness, on charges of abuse of office, the jury finds the defendant. The pause stretched on for what seemed like an eternity. Rebecca felt Olivia squeeze her hands so hard her knuckles turned white. "Guilty, guilty, guilty, guilty on all counts." A wave of relief swept through the room. Rebecca felt her knees buckle, and Olivia's grip tightened on her hand. "Defendant, stand up," the judge ordered. Nathan Harlow rose slowly, his face pale but still arrogant. Nathan Harlow, having reviewed all of the evidence and testimony presented, and given the seriousness and pattern of your conduct, the court finds you guilty of all charges and sentences you to 12 years in federal prison. Upon completion of your sentence, you will be required to register with the National Juvenile Offender Registry and will be permanently disqualified from working with children or adolescents in any capacity. The judge's gavel sounded like the final chord. Nathan was led out of the courtroom. and Rebecca hugged Olivia, not hiding her tears. "It's over, honey. He'll never hurt you or the other kids again." They walked out of the courtroom to flashing cameras. Reporters surrounded them, asking questions. But Rebecca just shook her head and led Olivia through the crowd. This was their victory, their moment of liberation, and they weren't about to share it with the world. It was early spring outside. The sun was breaking through the clouds, illuminating the faces of a mother and daughter who had walked together through the darkness and into the light. "What are we going to do now, Mom?" Olivia asked as they walked away from the courthouse. Rebecca smiled, looking at her daughter. "We will live, Olivia. Just live." That evening back home, Rebecca and Olivia sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the Portland sky pink and gold. It was the first evening of their new life after Nathan Harlow, after fear, after pain. "I'm proud of you, you know," Rebecca said, looking at her daughter's profile, illuminated by the soft light of the setting sun. Olivia turned to her mother, her eyes shining. "I'm proud of both of us. We did this together." "Yes, together," echoed Rebecca. In the silence, filled only with the sounds of the spring evening, they sat together, not needing words. They knew there would be more hardships ahead, nightmares, moments of weakness, days when the memories would become too painful. But they also knew they were no longer alone in this struggle. Rebecca's phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Sarah. "Have you seen the news yet? 3 more families have come forward since the trial. 3 girls from other schools where Harlow worked." "What?" Rebecca straightened up. "Yeah, they saw the news coverage of the trial, and they had the courage to come forward. Jen, Officer Martinez, said they could now bring additional charges. His sentence could be extended." Rebecca exhaled slowly. That's good news, Sarah. Thanks for letting me know." "You're welcome. We're not done yet, Rebecca. This is just the beginning." After hanging up the phone, Rebecca turned to Olivia, who looked at her with a question in her eyes. "What's happened?" "More girls have found the courage to speak out about Harlow. Because of you, because of your courage, they are no longer afraid to speak out." Olivia nodded slowly, realizing the meaning of those words. "So what we did helped more than just us." "Exactly." Rebecca touched her daughter's cheek tenderly. "Your courage lit a light that now illuminates the way for others." There was a new gleam in Olivia's eyes. Not tears, but pride and determination. "Mom, I want to keep helping. Maybe I could talk to other girls. Show them that they're not alone, that they can overcome this." Rebecca felt her heart fill with pride. "If you're ready, I'll support you in everything." "I'm ready. I don't want to hide anymore. I want my voice to be heard." And in that moment, Rebecca saw a future. Not just for her daughter, but for all those children who still suffered in silence. A future in which their voices would be heard, their pain acknowledged, and their strength celebrated. "I'll talk to Jennifer tomorrow. We can arrange a meeting with some of these families." Olivia nodded, and they fell silent again, watching the sun finally disappear over the horizon, taking with it another day and bringing a new beginning closer. A story about Nathan Harlow appeared on the front page of the Portland Times a week after the verdict. The journalist, a young woman named Ashley Connors, wrote not just a news story, but a full-fledged investigation, revealing how one man had manipulated the education system for years, moving from school to school, leaving a trail of ruined lives. Olivia held the newspaper in her hands and looked at the photograph of Nathan in handcuffs. The man who had once filled her with terror now looked small and insignificant. "I never thought I could look at his picture and not be afraid," she whispered. Rebecca put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "That's because you're stronger than he is, stronger than you thought." Together they turned the page, both in life and in the newspaper, closing one chapter and opening a new one, full of hope and the possibility of healing.